Have you ever wondered what it was like inside the $3 billion family-owned burger operation In-N-Out? Well, this episode was inspired by one of our clients who said to me, Kaylee, every time I drive through In-N-Out, I'm greeted promptly with enthusiasm. My burger comes out quickly, and it's always insanely delicious. That never fails. How do we run an aesthetic operation with that kind of consistency and fluidity? Well, lucky for us, I happen to know a 16-year leadership veteran on the In-N-Out executive team. She also happens to be my baby sister. So together we reached out for proper approvals to be able to come to you to share some of the insights into the hiring process, training program, and operating systems that have made this client-centric brand successful as it is. In this episode, we discuss back pocket power strategies that you too can integrate to become the obvious choice for your customer. Learn about the incredible structures and systems that build the In-N-Out brand in this fascinating episode number 23 of the Fierce Factor podcast with Lene Kentner. Hi there, welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Welcome, Lene.
Thank you.
This is the first podcast interview I've had a chance to do. Well, I'll take that back. The second podcast interview I've been able to do face-to-face with somebody. The first one was with Dr. Sabrina Fabi in March, literally like the day before the pandemic hit. So this is exciting. We're in the same bubble. Yes. So we get to be here in the same room. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
So Lene, you have been with In-N-Out for 16 years.
Yeah.
I know she doesn't look like she's quite 16 yet, but so tell us a little bit about yourself and what it's like to be a general manager of a $3 billion burger company.
Well, like Kaylee said, I've been with the company for 16 years. It was my first job. I just went in there wanting, honestly, to make more money. And my friends had worked for In-N-Out. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll go apply. And I got the job. And just like anything, I went through the interviewing process. I had probably about 2 interviews, and I almost didn't get hired because I was playing sports at the time and my availability wasn't quite what they wanted. But as time went on, I'm definitely the type of person that constantly wants to move forward and get to the next level. And I watch people do their job and I look at it and say, I take the good and the bad. And also I'm a visual learner as well as a doer. So I kind of just throw myself in that position and continue to move forward. I was going to school at the time as well, but I just wasn't, obviously I was in high school, but as time went on, I graduated high school, I was in college, and school wasn't for me. But I knew with In-N-Out, I learned a lot of life skills of just how to show up to work on time, just deal with people's different personalities. And as I continued to move forward, I just figured that this would be a great opportunity to do something that would look good on my resume if I ever wanted to do something else. And so once that happened, I was like, okay, I'm going to continue to move forward. And what I really actually liked about In-N-Out was it's not selling the burgers, fries, and drinks that we sell on a daily basis, but to watch the people below me and even above me, to see them grow and develop into somebody that they want to be, whether it's inside of work or outside of work. So even right now as a store manager, I get associates, that are 18 years old, graduating high school, and some that are older that are graduating college, and they want to find new jobs. And they always come to In-N-Out or come to me or, the manager, and they're like, I have to put in my 2 weeks, and they're crying because In-N-Out has been their home at their life for so long, and you're just kind of like, don't feel bad. Like, you're excited for them because they're doing something that they want to do and that they're growing. So to see someone to even get their raise or to the next level, it's not an easy process. especially as you start to move up within the company and becoming a cook or a fry person or a board person. So when that happens, you're super excited for them, and you praise them.
Aw. So, Nay, when you were saying, so thank you for that. I think that's really special. And obviously can sense your passion. So when you say you wanted to make more money, but it was your first job, you meant you want to work for a company that is known for paying their people well. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they started, I want to say they were like $2 over what minimum wage was and what any other company was offering. And so for me, it was kind of, I wanted to work for a good company. And I didn't know too much, to be honest, about In-N-Out. I mean, like you go through the drive-through and like you look at the person dicing the potatoes and you always hear like, well, I want to be that person that dices the potatoes, but like you do. And a lot of times if you see males that are doing it, or especially when I was younger, I would only see males that were like dicing potatoes. And you're like, well, I want to do it, like I could be just as good as them,
So let's talk about that because I do find that fascinating. One thing In-N-Out is certainly known for is the consistency of the high quality product and service that you get. And so for you, there's like, okay, sure, like an hierarchy of skills like dicing potatoes, maybe you have to have a certain, but from the consumer standpoint, what does it take how do you create that level of just consistent quality of product, customer service? Every single time someone goes through that drive-through, they know what they're going to expect. Like regularly I'll go through McDonald's and they gave the wrong toy or whatever, Happy Meal, right? Like you just don't get that. Very, very rarely do you get that with In-N-Out. So how does that work behind the scenes?
I think it honestly just starts from when you get hired. Like I could tell you when I got hired, the first thing that you do is you kind of go in and you talk to a store manager or assistant manager or the hiring manager. At the time that I was getting hired, there was a trainer. So they call it a store trainer. Kind of resorted back to that recently, but it really starts the day you walk into the door and what the culture is. People, the associates introducing themselves to you sitting down and watching modules coming from the founders of the company, and Lindsay, who is the owner, now the daughter or the granddaughter, and then also just even what Harry and Esther Snyder wanted and their vision and their goal for the company. And it just starts right then and there. And then afterwards, you kind of just, your manager or like I said, the store trainer will teach you and walk you through the steps of what you need to learn. But it's a constant reminder of what they expect from us and what In-N-Out wants to see.
So let's talk a little bit about, we've been talking a lot about vision and building the big picture. Like, I think it's different in a very small company, when there isn't as much structure necessarily put in place, but obviously that's the goal with building structure. But with that being said, do you think put your consumer hat on and what because I know we've had these conversations over a glass of wine and it'll just come up, or whatever, but about interactions that you have in businesses as a consumer that are so far off for you because you see there are gaps in the way that they either treat their people up front or the way that the teams are run, or what do you see through the lens of a leader of a very systematic business with a culture-centric business? From the consumer standpoint, do you see maybe top mistakes that are made?
I think that, just going from the hiring or the front desk or host, you see right away because you can tell just if they're super excited, if they're not, how they greet. We're really big on if someone comes to our window, we greet right away. So when you go to a restaurant and you stand there and you're like, where's the host at? What is going on? Or you go to any place that has a front desk and no one's there. It's kind of okay, well, what do you do? It's almost like an awkward, okay, let me just, look around, and waiting for that person. So I think that, and then also the way people handle difficult situations, because I think that's all a training process. And then also that kind of, if your associate or doesn't necessarily know how to handle a difficult situation, that reflects on the manager or the higher up. And you could handle that situation completely different than your employee or your associate would. But that's where the disconnect of like the training and kind of being like, hey, our main goal here is to take care of the customer and do whatever you can to make that customer happy, because you're going to lose more business from a bad mistake than you are to gain more customers from a good experience. So you got to make sure that you train properly.
Okay, so because in theory, this is like an easy conversation. Like, okay, this is what we expect, right? Like I hire someone, I show them, they go through our modules. I want to talk about the training program in a minute, but this is our expectation. But what if the customer comes in and they're just totally off? They're completely wrong. They're cray-cray, right? Like how is your team instructed to handle a situation like an irate customer?
When it comes like to an irate customer, an odd customer, is really just get a manager or get someone higher up involved, because we don't obviously want cell phones around. Like anyone's going to video something and put it on YouTube or on the internet, so another kind of like knock. And honestly, I'm sure there's a million videos out there of in and out handling situations, not the best way. But I think that for me, like when it comes to like an irate customer, what I try to teach my associates is kind of, right away get the manager involved and just do your best to kind of calm them down. And if that means kind of going above and beyond, even if it's not necessarily what you want to do, but you just want to kind of in the situation almost in a way, that's what you have to do. Do we tell customers that, hey, you know what, like I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Like I can't have you disrespect my associates like that. Yeah, but it's handling the situation honestly, but also just kind of doing what's best going to diffuse the situation.
Yeah. Well, I so appreciate that too, as a leader, your people are critically important as well. And so you're going to have their back. Yeah. And I think there's just kind of like that balance, right? So I want to talk more about the people, because I think that was the biggest outstanding request when I asked for what kind of questions would you want to hear would you have for Lene, was how does In-N-Out as a corporation, and obviously you as someone, I think you have 50 employees under.
No, I have 89
employees. Okay. So how do you, and I realize you have managers under you too, but how do you hire? What are you looking for that in that employee that's going to tell you that this person's going to be the right fit for this standard of really operations?
Okay, a couple things. So one, I'm going to think about if Lindsay, my owner, was to walk into my store, is she going to see this associate and be like, wow, this associate would fit with In-N-Out. But I also have to think about, is that associate going to fit with me? And is that associate going to fit with the associates? Because you have to think about personalities working with each other. If you have an interviewee that comes in and wants to get the job and I don't even know what would be a bad
like a hot temper, like ego, or just totally not a fit with I know like In-N-Out, like I think of the In-N-Out kids, they're like the ASB students at school. Like I think of like the cheerleader, like, woo, I don't know, for some reason in my mind, like they seem to be like pretty good, like straightforward kids. And so maybe if someone came in that was more rebellious, they wouldn't fit. I don't know. I'm making stuff up.
I think honestly, it's all in the questions that you ask, and their demeanor. So we do one-on-one interviewing, we do group interviewing. So like if I have 5 people in front of me and I do a group interview, it's really easy. I can decide very quickly in questions that I ask if this person's, again, if they're even worthy of having a second interview or a one-on-one interview with me.
Because of how they interact with the other people?
How they interact, or you ask them questions and they'll be like, oh, can you it's okay to repeat the question, but it's kind of like them
being engaged.
Yes, being engaged. And then also, can they even answer the question that you're asking?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's go there. What questions do you ask? Because when we had this offline conversation at first, they were a little different than what I had expected. So tell me a little bit about some of like the questions that you're asking.
So you want to ask a lot of behavioral questions and a lot of open-ended questions. You want them to tell you a story about them. So you essentially want to get to know this person almost on like a personal level. So you are asking them questions like, tell me about a difficult situation that you were put in. And they'll tell you about it, and you can kind of go from there. You'll ask them when Kaylee and I were having this conversation, I even told her, like, you can even ask, like, what's your favorite subject in school? And they might tell you, and everybody, it's funny because like a lot of people say, if they say history, they're not a good fit, because history is a lot of people think history is boring. I personally think history is boring, but like, I'm more of like, if someone's like, oh, I like math, because math is more, I'm very structured. I'm very like, there's an answer, gray or black. There's no like gray. It's always black or white. So math, there's always a definite answer, so
which doesn't fit into a startup.
No, I know. I was just saying, but I'm just saying, like, so then we were talking about asking them, like, you have a mentor or favorite teacher, and it's, they might tell you, yeah, my mentor is this person. And okay, why is that person your favorite mentor? And they might say, well, they spend a lot of one-on-one time with me. They go through the process that I need to go through. And you have to look, as for me, that is kind of a red flag, because I have 80 associates that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I have a schedule that I have to do. I have shift people that I have to manage and make sure that I'm developing them as well, and developing the leaders that want to become a manager. So I don't always have that time to be like, hey, let me sit down with you and work with you one-on-one. It's kind of like, hey, let me give you feedback. I need you to work on this. Okay, fix it. And like, let's move on type of thing. So if someone's telling me that I constantly need that one-on-one attention, I might not think that they're a great fit for my store or for In-N-Out in general. But again, every manager is different, and that's just me. But you really want to ask those questions that is going to really get them to tell the story. So even for someone to answer, if they're answering phones on a front desk, you're asking them about their last job and what was some difficult situations that they were put in, or was there time that they had to take initiative at that job, and what did it look like? Because you want them to paint that picture of what it's going to look like at your business and working for you and underneath you. Are you going to have to micromanage them? Are you going to have to constantly have those conversations and discipline them? Like, you have to think about what's going to make your job easier, so you're a better boss, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before, one of the first things you said to me was, which we probably say too many times, and it's kind of obvious, but hiring for attitude and looking for passion was something that you said, because the skills, you're going to teach them how to do the things, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what an onboarding or training program is like coming into In-N-Out.
So, I think it's a little bit more kind of high. I want to say it's a little bit more high tech than most companies. Obviously, we have modules and videos that we watch, and it goes through everything. It goes through how to take care of a customer. The customer is number one. Give the customer the pickle. It talks about
the pickle.
Yeah.
What's that?
Meaning giving them the pickle. Like, there's a story where like a customer wanted, it's like giving them something extra. It's like just taking care of them.
Oh, like the extra sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
Over delivery. Over delivery.
Yes, exactly. Over deliver.
Well, and also customers like to be surprised and delighted. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times we want to sell, like, you're going to get this and you're going to get this and going to get that. And sometimes it's nice to just hold one little thing back, like the little cookie at the checkout or the gift bag, or right. There's just a little something that they didn't expect. Yeah, but that's surprised and delighted them.
Yes, exactly.
The pickle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right, I like that.
Exactly. Even going back to kind of what you talked about earlier, like the passion and stuff like that, it's like, you got to find someone that is going to be, there's certain things that you can teach. You can teach someone skills and, what you want within your company, but you can't teach them how to have a smile on their face, how to have a good attitude about things. So, I'm sure, and to be honest with you, I've had plenty of associates or interviewees that come and interview very, very well. And as an employee, they're a little bit difficult. So that's why having those questions and kind of trying not to be biased on, like, I like associates that play sports because it's hard work, it's disciplined, it's structured. So, and I think
team.
Yes, exactly. A team atmosphere. So you're kind of that's what you look for. But you also ask these questions of like, why did you play this sport? Or like, what about that sport do you like the best? And sometimes it's just kind of them talking about them being a leader or them talking about this. And you could see, okay, then you're looking at the vision of how this is going to look in the future with them. I see them moving up within the company. I see them staying and growing and learning and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Is that a deal breaker for you? Like if an employee, that they're going to be temporary or they're coming in for a short-term period, is that okay? Or do you only look for people that I want this to be my lifelong career?
No, I mean, the thing is any associate it's always a temporary job. Like, that, like we don't hire anyone full-time. So it's knowing that this person, obviously high schooler, okay, they're probably going to stay through high school. You kind of know that. College, they might have to leave. But really, like for me, that doesn't really matter because it's more about how can I teach them the skills that they need to know to survive and to get to the next job. Well, it's like you get associates that don't, when they first get hired, our structure is you need to shave every single day, for a male, or females can't get their nails painted. They can't have drastic makeup on.
Oh.
So it's kind of like they have to learn to do these things every single day or change a little bit of who they are or what they were before.
Adapt.
Yeah. And are they able to do that? So you teach them how to be that way. Like, for example, I recently just had an associate who quit because he got a different job. And he was like, oh, can I drop down to 1 day a week? But he wasn't very reliable. And I told him no. And I go, as much as I care about you and I want to see you grow and, I want you here, but at the same time, it's not worth my time to have me schedule you and then you might call out. So it's just very, and him understanding that he can't do that at his next job.
Okay, so we all need to hire the people that have gone through Lene first, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are In-N-Out burgers so good?
I don't know. That's on, they started in 1948. So it's just, we've stayed the same. And I think that's one thing that people constantly want to change things. And even within like my systems, if I constantly change things, that system is never going to become good. It's never going to become concrete or not going to be, if I make tiny little tweaks, I'm going to get better and better. So I think that with In-N-Out, since it's always been the same menu essentially since 1948 and it hasn't changed. Had they found better vendors within quality and better machines or whatever it is to make the quality even that much better? Yes. But it's little changes here and there. You never see a drastic change. You never see it add avocado all of a sudden on the menu or add bacon or, and I think what a lot of companies in any industry is that they want to change, they have a vision, this is what I want. And because they find a problem or a hiccup in that vision, they go, okay, let me scratch that vision. I want to go to this, rather than really kind of looking at the process of it and kind of being like, hey, where did that hiccup happen? And what do we need to change within that process and stay within that vision? Because that's what's going to keep them.
I think one example that we could relate to in our industry, right? Like my business coach is always saying, where can you shave? Where can you shave? Speaking of shaving, but because the Pareto 80-20 principle, right? 20% of what we do is essentially bringing in 80% of our revenue into our business. And so what we tend to do is there's a new great procedure, there's a new machine, right? There's the new this, a new that, a new marketing strategy. And so it's very tempting to want to kind of jump into the next thing because it's that shiny object, right?
Yes.
The shiny objects dull quickly,
Yes.
And so I think what you're saying In-N-Out has just done is they know what they do well, and then every single day, their job is to continue to do it better. I will say too, the product is great, but one thing that they do exceptionally well is the delivery system. You know, the product, the way that the product comes, the service, I was so impressed with just even with this COVID stuff that In-N-Out was really the first business that I interacted with, right? When like restaurants were open and I could drive through, it was like they had really the kind of touchless experience from even taking orders 6 feet away with the mask on to kind of expedite the line. And then by the time you got up to pay, there was the holder for the credit card that had an extension on it. So nobody touched or anything. And the bag was on a tray. And it just, the whole kind of process, they were right. They were just on top of that, you know? Yeah. And so that's something that I think from a consumer standpoint is super impressive. So can you tell us a little bit about the In-N-Out secret menu?
I wouldn't say it's a secret, to be honest with you, because I feel like everyone knows about it.
But they don't.
I mean, honestly, it's just kind of, you have your 4x4, your 3x3, like your animal fry. Because I don't think an animal fry is on the menu. I have to.
Well, there's a Flying Dutchman. Mm-hmm. There's always stuff I hear about on the secret menu. So what is the concept behind the secret menu?
I think because I think that's kind of the change that it has kind of went on, that has happened throughout the years. And so that's kind of the secret menu, or someone came in one day and was like, oh, I want 2 meat, 2 cheese patties, and I want them on top of each other. Okay. So then they came up with the Flying Dutchman. So it's really trying to make the menu simple, as in like you have your menu 1, 2, 3, a cheeseburger, hamburger, double, your fries and your drinks. And then you have that secret menu that has a little bit extra on it. You have that 3x3, you have that 4x4, you have the Flying Dutchman, the grilled cheese, things that just to kind of take care of the customer a little bit, like, hey, the double's not big enough. Okay, we'll try the 3x3, like it's just kind of those little things that I guess would make the customer more happy.
So I wasn't sure if you were going to say it was, because I think of this, like, what if we had a VIP program that certain clients got access to, or there was a secret menu that they got to see of like services that were offered if they were part of like the VIP club. Like I wasn't sure if there was more of an exclusivity thing behind it. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but is, I don't know. People tend to like that. I just think it's kind of cool for marketing.
I think that it would be. And I think, even going back to like you talk about the shiny new thing is, super exciting to get, but everybody kind of wants to stick with people want their normal routine. They want
what they know. Yeah. And they want a result.
Yes. And they want to know that the person that they go to, you think about in any industry, going to a restaurant or a dentist or anywhere, you want to go to that same person because you trust them. Yeah. And I think that's the one thing is like In-N-Out has built these trusts with their customers. And so the customers continue to come back. Now, do we make mistakes? 100%. We all make mistakes, but we also know how to take care of that customer if we make a mistake. And most of the time, a customer is like, it doesn't happen very often, so I'm going to go back. But if it's something that's continually to happen on a day-to-day or every time that they come to visit you, eventually they're going to start telling people like, man, like, I went to In-N-Out or I went to this place and I had bad service. And then they're like, man, I went there the other day, like hoping that it would change, and it still hasn't changed. So now they're going to go find something.
So do you guys send in to that? I was thinking that obviously to be consistent, I'll be honest, I realize it'll be like a random middle of the night and I'll be like, oh, are we doing that? Like, I even think I sent Shannon an email this morning. Like, do we have a system for when someone signs up here with this email, does that go there and do they get access to this? And it just kind of came to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm on my way to the 3 billion, but we're not quite there yet. I can't imagine a company of that size. But like, how do you ensure that consistency? Do you have secret shoppers? Are there like quality control checks that are part of like the standard operations?
Yeah. So on every level, from the shipment going into the warehouse, they have quality control. So it starts from there. As a store manager, when it gets to my store, like I said, every store is gonna, what we call it is like you have an umbrella that essentially we have to be under this umbrella, but our store is who we are. So my store may be way more structured than another store is. And I could be more successful or I could be less successful than that person. It just kind of all depends. But it's, on a daily basis, I don't go in being like, okay, everything is perfect. My associates know exactly what they need to do. I go in finding what's wrong. And then I go in and I give them feedback, and it's giving them feedback on a day-to-day basis. So even if they greet a customer, they've been with a company for a year and a half already, and I somehow overhear them greet a customer the wrong way, I'll correct them like, hey, make sure you greet the customer this way. So it's very specific on even to what the words that we use. So, hi, how are you? It's not like hello or what's up or how can I help you? You know,
I think I've seen business managers become frustrated that they have to do that. Like they have to constantly, quote unquote, micromanage, right? Talk to me about how, because obviously your goal by correcting things right off the bat is that you give specific, clear, specific, concise feedback so that they know what to do so it doesn't happen again, right? But like, talk to me a little bit about what that performance management process is like. And so let's say that first time it's, hey, what's up? Thanks for coming in. And that poor kid is like so sweet and having a great attitude, but he didn't say, hi, how are you? But you still stop him right there because you noticed that could slip into something else, right? So you tell him, you pull Johnny aside, hey, Johnny, thanks for great attitude, right? The Oreo cookie, love your enthusiasm. You're my rock star. Don't forget, hi, how are you? That's how we say it right there, right? Okay. Then you move on. Let's say, a week later, Johnny's like, buddies come in and he's like, what's happening, to his buddies. Then what?
Well, I think it kind of all depends too. Like if I knew that was his buddies and he's like, what's up? Like, okay, cool. Like you kind of, he's saying hi to his friends type of thing. But if it was like a customer and I felt like he didn't know them, it wasn't a friend or a family member or something like that, and he kind of said that, I would kind of be like, hey, what did we talk about, a week ago? Or like, hey, what's a proper way of greeting that customer? And, oh, hi, how are you? So
he's repeating it back to you.
Exactly.
So that he knows.
Exactly. But also too, what I always think about is when you're disciplining someone or when you're giving somebody feedback is, are they doing it because they don't know? Is it a training issue or is it a personal issue? So are they choosing to do the wrong thing because they just don't want to do the right thing? Or is it, hey, I didn't train them correctly? So now I repeated it again. He repeated back to me. Cool, he knows. So if I see him do it again, then it's kind of being a little bit more like, hey, like I'm going to have to hold you accountable because we've talked about this a couple times now. And I now know, we know, the policy or what the proper way of greeting a customer is, and we can't do that. Then I'm going to have to hold you accountable.
Which means writing him up or documenting.
Exactly. Documenting whether it's a verb. I mean, for us, is like the first, probably the second conversation, it's a note. Hey, we talked about the greeting,
email.
Yes. Yeah, in there, well, we have like a discipline file on everyone. So we got to go in there, write a note, then it becomes a verbal, and then it becomes a written documentation.
Okay, awesome. What about like, is there like a certain place to go to find good people? Like, is there... Their store.
No, I mean, honestly, you want to think about like the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis, like we kind of joke around a little bit. We have the cleanup position. It's not the easiest position at all. And it's probably one of the most important positions that people don't realize that we have. And associates feel like, oh, if I'm cleanup, I'm not that good. Or if I'm just, in the dining room taking the customer, like I'm not that good. And it's like every single position within your company is important. So if someone doesn't like a certain position, or they're like, well, I don't like being at the front desk. It's like, okay, they'd rather assist someone. It's kind of like, if you can't do your job being at the front desk, how am I supposed to expect you to assist me on dealing with a client in the back, or whatever it is.
Right.
So,
or maybe they have to cut their teeth a little bit in a certain role and earn their way to the potato cutter.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but knowing what you want, you see, we talk about like you go to people. I mean, I know this wouldn't work necessarily in your guys' industry, but you look people at the car wash, right? They're hard workers. They're in the sun. They understand detail. They understand what to look for. But that is what essentially what a cleanup job would do for me, because I need someone that's able to see the detail, to see the small things, to understand what cleanliness is supposed to look like, and also someone that's going to work hard. And
well, I mean, obviously there aren't really cleaner businesses than medical practices. I'm just saying.
So it's just finding the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. You could go to an In-N-Out and you could walk up to someone on the counter and they greet you with like, hi, how are you? Like, what can I get for you today? How's your day going? Like, you want to be like, man, this person would be great at my front desk. I go to places that, whether I go to Chick-fil-A or Starbucks, and I see the personality and how they interact with customers at their job, I'm going to be like, cool, like, you want to come work for In-N-Out? Like,
always be recruiting.
Yeah. And finding those people that will want to bring other people into your company. They're going to bring customers back and bring more customers in as well.
Right. I mean, I think it's easy to overlook or forget about just the small network that we even have, and how just knowing a couple of people will know a couple more people and know a couple more people, and, could extrapolate from there. So, all right, Nate. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And I love that. Like, you can't teach someone how to smile. And give them the pickle. Give them the pickle. Yes. All right. Thanks.
Take care of them.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.